All right, this lecture is going to help you do some of the whiteboarding practice problems that we did in class involving middle latitude cyclones. So this is one of the practice problems, and I've got a couple set up for you here. And this is just kind of where we look at the trends of what's going to take place in terms of temperature, pressure, precipitation, and wind direction. Here's my middle latitude cyclone. It's represented by a low pressure. If I had isobars, clearly there would be the isobars would give you a little bit more of an explanation as to what the pressures are around it, but we're going to use a generic picture here, and this is my best drawing of the United States, the contiguous United States. So here's my warm front, here's my cold front, and this here is actually an occluded front. Sometimes it's written in red and blue, sometimes you'll see it in purple, but an occlusion. And right now we're not going to talk through that occlusion. We're going to look at what's taking place along the transect. So I have locations A, B, C, D, and E. Location A, B is directly on or within the warm front. C is in the warm sector. Hopefully you recall that this is the warm sector. This is maritime tropical air that's kind of fueling this system here. And here's my cold front. Cold front is where letter D will be located, and then letter E is behind the cold front itself. If I look at the air masses themselves, I can look at it as three distinctive ones. Here I have a cool continental polar air mass. Here I have a maritime tropical, kind of a warm moist air mass, and back here I have a cold air mass of continental polar. So I have three. So continental polar, we'll call this cool, we'll call this a warm maritime tropical, and we'll call this a cold continental polar. So as I look at this, and you can pause this at any point, here's the same picture from before, you can actually start making sense of what's taking place on here. So work with me here for a second. Let me see if I can make this picture a little bit larger. And here goes. So letter A. So what's happening with the temperature? Well, it's still far enough out in front of the warm front, so the temperature is actually going to be relatively steady. It's going to be in the cool sector, so we'll just say it's going to be cool. It's going to be steady at this cool temperature. Pressure, it's going to be high, but it's going to be decreasing for two reasons. One, low pressure is moving towards, along with rainy conditions, and we associate rainy conditions with lower pressure. So it's going to be high pressure, but the trend will be at decreasing. Precipitation, very low likelihood. It's not likely to be any type of precipitation, at least not until the warm front catches up to it. And then the wind direction. If I draw a straight line from the letter N and deflect it to the right, you'll see it's out of this direction, and that would be out of the southeast. Letter B. Now I'm right along the warm front. The temperature trend is going to be increasing. As soon as this warm front rolls through, it's going to go from cool temperatures to warm temperatures. Here's your warm sector of the air mass. The pressure trend, well, the low pressure is getting closer, so it should be decreasing. Precipitation trend, well, I'm right on this. This should be a steady rain right along the warm front. So high chance of precipitation. And then wind direction. Remember, connect the straight line, deflect it to the right, and we would say that this is south-southeast, right? It's south of southeast. I would also accept southeast, but I think south-southeast is a little bit more, I'd just say accurate, a little bit more precise in this case. Letter C, we've got steady and warm, right? This is the warm maritime tropical air mass acting on it, but it's going to be warm, right? It's not a whole lot of changing to it. It's just going to be warm conditions. Pressure trend, it's going to be low, low to steady. This is kind of one of those tricky spots, and I'm not going to beat you up on this one. Just make sure you realize that these conditions here, we've got rain coming, right? We've got this storm on the horizon. So moving on here, precipitation. In the middle of this sector, it's going to be low chance of precipitation, very low. And then last but not least, if I draw my straight line in, I deflect it to the right, you'd see that the winds will be out of the south. Letter D. Letter D is on the cold front, and this is really the unique scenario. That letter D here, the temperature within 24 hours is going to be decreasing dramatically. As soon as this cold front moves through, you're going to go from the warm sector into the cold sector, and that's going to be a very dramatic decrease in temperature. So it will be decreasing dramatically. Pressure trend, well, it's going to be low. It's going to be low because for two reasons. The low pressure is getting ready to move through, and you've got precipitation. So where you find those combinations, it's going to be low pressure. As soon as it moves through, that low pressure is going to be moving out of your area. So the pressure is going to be increasing. So low pressure, but it'll be increasing once that cold front moves through. Precipitation trend. This will be very, very high likelihood of precipitation, and it'll be a short-lived storm. With it could be some severe weather, but that doesn't guarantee it. Just because you have the conditions doesn't guarantee severe weather is going to roll through. In my wind direction, here's point D. Point it in, deflect it to the right. I'm going to be looking at, I would say, either south or south-southwest. And you can look at it as it's going to be deflected right. Here's point D right here. Here's straight in. Here's deflected right. I would definitely say that south-southwest would probably be the best response for that one. But I would say, I could see how you could say south. Letter E is, oh, final point over here, excuse me. Right here's letter E. The temperature trend is going to be steady. It's going to be decreasing, right? You've got cool air blowing in from the north. This air mass coming out of here is what's driving this cold front here. The pressure trend is going to be increasing. If low pressure is moving away, right? If this whole system is moving to the east, your pressure is going to be increasing. So your pressure trend will be increasing. Very low chance of precipitation. We think of high pressure kind of moving in the area. Your pressure is going to be increasing. All of the moisture has kind of been squeezed out of the air by this cold front. So low chance of precipitation. And if I draw my straight line in, deflected to the right, we're looking at kind of southwest to west-southwest winds. And these are all consistent with pressure gradient force directly into low pressure and then deflected to the right. Now I'm going to do one more with you, but I'm going to go through it a little quicker. So this is a practice problem here. This system here, you'll see that the mid-latitude cyclone is traveling southeast. Right? We would find the severe weather threat where we find the cold front, so right at letter D. What cloud type is associated with cold or severe weather would be cumulonimbus clouds. 4 potential severe weather threats. Well, we can look at several of them. So I just went through there. Hail, heavy rain, right, that inundating flooding type of rain, damaging winds, and we'll talk about these are parts of updrafts and downdrafts that come in and out of the storm itself. Tornadoes and lightning. Remember, thunderstorms with them bring lightning. Thunder doesn't do much damage. Thunder is just kind of a sound. It could be startling, but lightning is what does potential damage. And then how long would it take for the mid-latitude cyclone to pass? Well, about 2 to 4 days. They don't travel at one specific speed. They kind of change their speeds. They can travel. Some could be faster moving, some could be slower moving. So 2 to 4 days on average. We'd say about 3 days. I would be okay with that. So here we can take a look at 5 different locations, much like we did for the first practice problem. We'll call them location A, B, C, D, and E. Location A is in front of the warm front, B is on the warm front, C is in the warm sector, D is right along the cold front, and E is in the cold sector. So you can pause this, you can look through here. I'm going to hit on just a couple of these. I'll look at point A, it's out in front. Steady temperatures, it's in the cool sector, and this would be high pressure, but it's decreasing, right? If low pressure is moving into the area, your trend will be its pressure is decreasing. Very low chance of precipitation, but it'll be increasing the likelihood once it continues moving forward, moving in the southeastern direction. So wind direction, right? A to the low pressure, deflected to the right, so winds will be out of the southeast. In this case, if you were to draw the south of southeast, I would say that south-southeast would actually be a little bit of a better response, but I'd accept southeast. Letter B. Letter B is on the warm front. Temperature trend is going to increase, right? As soon as this warm front rolls through, you'll be in the warm sector. Precipitation trend, this would be high chance of rain. It would just be a steady rain. And once again, your straight line in, deflected to the right. Once again, you can call it south-southeast. I would accept southeast here. Let's see, where am I at? Letter C, warm sector. You can do those together. Or you can take a look here if you're with somebody. If you're doing them by yourself, make sure you take a look at that. I do want to emphasize the cold front, letter D. Your temperature trend is going to change dramatically. It's low now, but it's soon to be increasing. As soon as that rolls through, remember, cold fronts are going to move through very quickly. High chance of precipitation, but it's going to be short-lived. Severe weather potential, and your winds are going to shift as well. And then notice behind this system itself, behind the cold front, on the kind of the wraparound portion of the low pressure, you're going to get these clear conditions that are going to be drier and colder, and your winds are going to change as well. There you have it.